I'm Thunder Parley, Senior Software Engineer on Google Plus for businesses and schools.
And I'm Kalmanowicz, Product Manager for the same. We're here today to talk to you about Google Plus's additional features for businesses and schools, and to help you apply Google Plus in your organizations. Let's take a quick look at what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to provide some context on why this is important to us and to our business partners. We'll take a quick look through some of the headline enterprise features we provide today.
And then I'll take us on a quick dive into our most important safeguard for sharing in a domain. Then we'll give you a quick preview of something we've been working on for you developers out there. And then we'll wrap it up and save some time for a brief question and answer session at the end.
All right, let's get familiar with the field. Social is the next generation. And with Google Plus, you can connect to your local offices, global teammates, and external partners and clients. People want more information, not more emails. You can share with anything with anyone, but that doesn't mean you should share everything with everyone. Google Plus provides a framework to try and help your users make the right decisions regarding what to share with whom in the right context, internally and externally, to work smarter, faster, and better.
And we want it to be easy to find the people you need to reach, and keep your communications safe and within your company's domain when necessary. And to this end, we're working to enhance Google Plus to make this awesome social tool even better for your organizations.
We're already getting some positive feedback about this. Brady Corporation has found that they've been able to help their distributed offices come together using Google Plus. Fairfax Media has used Google Plus sharing and docs to facilitate overcoming geographical barriers themselves. And the Grommet has also used Google Plus and Hangouts, which they like so much, they've even managed to completely replace their wired phone infrastructure with it. So they use Google Plus as their primary means of communication within the company. Now let's take a look at some of the features we've been releasing lately to facilitate this. Domain labels are something that we released recently to try and address the need to make sure that you're sharing in the right context with the right audiences. So I'll walk you through an example. Let's say that I worked for a company called Inc42. If you have a look at my profile, you'll see the inc42.com domain label there, which indicates that I'm a member of this domain. But you can only see this label if you are also logged in as a member of the same domain. So it's an internally visible tool to help you differentiate between people who are inside your domain and out. So if I'm logged in, I look at my own profile, I can see this, and it reaffirms to me, oh yeah, I'm not using my personal profile. I can also look at a coworker and see that, hey, on the hover card here, Allison is also a member of my domain. So if I interact with her, I can rest assured that I'm interacting within my organization. And in this case, I don't even have to click through to her profile to see this. It's right there on the hover card that pops up when you mouse over her profile picture or name. Now, our goal in calling this out is to, again, differentiate between the various profiles a person can have to help you share in the right context. This is especially important when, for example, let's say Allison has her work profile, which is in the same domain as me, but she also has a personal profile down there at the bottom. So when I'm trying to plus mention her here, and I see that, oh, there are multiple profiles here. You know, am I trying to share with her personal profile, with her work profile? This lets me make the right decision. In this case, if I want to share within my organization, I look for the domain label. We've started surfacing this in the key areas which we think are the most impactful. Hover card, back here, profile, and then again in autocomplete. And we're looking at introducing this in more locations in future.
So we also challenged the Hangouts engineering team to really pump up the experience. We understand that businesses and schools typically have a need for more concurrent collaboration, whether it be closing a global sales deal, an after-hours tutoring session, a big research project, interviewing people from around the world. So we've boosted the number of participants by a whopping 50% to 15 live streams. That means all 15 participants can use all the existing collaboration tools, such as working on a Drive document together in real time. And when you start a business hangout, we make it easy to only invite your coworkers if you want to have a company meeting. And if anyone external tries to get in, it's not happening unless you've invited them in.
That's right. And then we get back to the original and the most important differentiator for businesses and schools.
The ability to create restricted posts. When you restrict a post, it stays within your Google Apps domain. Unlike a normal consumer post, the audience is strictly capped to your domain members. So you cannot even reshare or plus mention a post to show it to people outside your domain.
The admin has a default option for this. When they go into their control panel, you can see that they can choose to make the default for all new posts within the domain restricted to that domain. This means that if the user doesn't make any additional actions or doesn't really think about what they're doing, and they're a member of your domain, their posts will be safeguarded and restricted to their domain. It requires an explicit action with a conscious decision to change this at post write time so that you create an unrestricted post instead. If we go back here, you can see at the bottom right the Allow External Sharing button that's in this pop-up here. Once they click that, the restriction is removed, and they can share this post outside the domain.
All right, so let me give you a little bit more detail on exactly how this works. So hold on your hats. We're going to have some fun with some basic Venn diagrams.
You all remember your set theory, right?
Well, I don't like to call it theory because I'm going to show you how it actually works. So I'll call it set practice.
All right, Thunder.
So this circle here represents the collection of profiles in your circles. These are all the profiles that you've added inside or outside of your domain. Now, this square here represents the collection of profiles that are strictly in your Google Apps domain. So let's say you share a post with people in your circles. Now, if it's a restricted post, this green box limits the audience. This post will be shared and visible to people only in the intersection here. Now, this works the same with any specific circles you might use. So let's say you want to share with your buddies at work. I work with Joel. I'm going to share a post with him.
Thanks, Thunder. I take a look at this post, and I decide, hey, you know what? This is probably the best cat video I've seen all day. I want to share it with my friends, too. So because it's a restricted post, when I try and do this, only those friends of mine who are within the domain get to see this reshared post. So while the audience for the post has expanded by virtue of my resharing it, it's only expanded within that green box of people who are within our Google Apps domain. May all be kind of fun and games, a little bit facetious with cat videos, but let's say that instead of resharing that, I reshared some internal information about my company's confidential plans to build a better mousetrap. In this case, no matter what the mousetrap is, I'd be pretty glad that by resharing it to my friends, even by accident, it's still kept within the domain, and no one who's outside of the domain gets that. If I tried to reshare with journalist circle, for example, and none of those journalists were members of my own domain, none of them would see it.
So you see, your choice of circles and the people you share a post with is a union. But if the post is restricted, then that list is intersected with the domain members to calculate the final audience allowed to view the post.
And the same thing applies with plus mentions. Let's take a look. Here we're looking at another domain. This time it's altostrat.com. You can see that this post was restricted to the domain by the building icon, which is just beneath Eddie in Eddie Johnson, which is the author of the post. Someone has decided that, hey, they're going to try and plus mention one of my profiles. But as we talked about earlier, my profile in this case is in the Inc42 domain, or maybe even in the Google domain. So the lack of a domain label there indicates that I'm not in the Altostrat domain, because we're looking at this from the perspective of someone in Altostrat. So even though there's no domain label there, it's the end of the day, we're all feeling a bit fatigued. Let's say they try and plus mention me anyway. Plus mention fails. You get a little warning reminding you that, hey, people outside your organization can't get to see restricted content because it's safeguarded against that.
And now we know, hey, that's some fancy JavaScript, and for you web developers out there who like to mess around with our JSON and try and trick our servers, we keep it safely tucked away in the back end that once a post has been created restricted, we continue to reinforce that restriction on every activity. Even on the reshares, we look up the original restriction, and we know that that restriction must continue to stay.
That's right. Now, we've taken a good look at the features we've already released. Maybe a little boring for those of you who are pretty familiar with it, so we know why you're really here, right?
The amazing after party,
That too.
the chance to meet Vic and Dunter in person,
Or maybe to share a cold one with you, Thunder. If you don't get that, watch the internship trailer.
That's right.
But really, we want to know what's new. So today,
We are pleased to announce our development of
the Google+ Domains API. This API allows you as app developers to work within a Google Apps domain. And say you're developing in-house, you can develop an API call in your application that integrates your Google Apps domain with third-party tools. You can also work as a software vendor developing an application for other businesses to install for their own Google Apps domains. Now, we're still in development, but Thunder has whipped something up for you to show you a little demo.
So this part of the demo was pre-recorded earlier for robustness against lack of connectivity, but we'll be including a link to the recording on YouTube for people browsing the slides later. For now, we'll just play the video directly, so those of you watching later on YouTube, you'll be looking at the recorded demo.
We must go deeper.
And deeper we shall. Let's begin. So here we have Kavita Singh. She's a manager of a small sales team and is logged into her CRM app. She sees green. Green's good. Brigida has already exceeded her monthly quota by 12%. There's a button generated by the app that will quickly allow her to click and congratulate Brigida. A quick click makes an AJAX call to a simple servlet, I'll show you the code in a minute, which uses the Google+ Domains API to create a new post. We call this an activity, shared to Brigida and the rest of her domain. That button linked to the post, and now we're looking at the post. And we can see that this post was indeed created and restricted to the Google Apps domain of Inc. 42, and it cannot be shared outside of the domain. So now we've created this post. Let's cut over to Brigida, who she's working away in her inbox, closing sales deals, helping partners financing. She didn't get to be the best on the team by just sitting around doing nothing all day. And this notification's rolled in, and she sees that her manager has congratulated her. And Joelle has already +1 the post. It puts a little smile on her face. So she's going to leave a little comment back to her manager, thanking her and reminding her that she has worked extra hard this month, and she's going to go take some time off in Maui at the end of the month, which I personally love, and if you've been there, I don't know how you can't. So that's not the end of our story there, though. She's going to go back, keep working on her inbox. She's finishing up her plan to help customers finance and further drive sales. She's about wrapped that up, and now another notification's come in. Oh, something from Joelle. Well, Joelle's a newer employee at the company, and from this, he can see that, well, Brigida is kind of the team leader in sales right now. And he mentions Mike and asks for her advice. Well, later, she will go on to mentor Joelle, and they're growing the team to make them a lot better. So just in this simple demo, we see that with the Google+ Domains API, you're not just creating content so people have something to read in your domain. You can help spread information, you can boost morale, you can reinforce communications between team members, and you can help grow productivity in your organization. So now, let's go over to the code snippets. I'm going to just show you the very simple way it was to write a quick Java servlet to call the API. Here you have your basic servlet setup, the message and the email address of the person we wanted to congratulate, some boilerplate code to do the OAuth 2 dance and get the credentials for the logged in user.
Let's take a look now. How do you actually create the activity?
So to create and populate the activity, it's rather straightforward. Using the library that comes with the Google Plus Domains API, we create a new activity, which is what we also call a post. This plus object, we set the original content, that's the body of the message that you want to send, and we set the ACL on it, which is who we want to be able to see this post. In another example, you could have maybe just congratulated Brigida privately.
And you wouldn't have had that set type domain entry in the immutable list.
Exactly. So in this case, we add two ACL entries. The first one is domain, and this allows anyone in inc42.com to be able to see the post. The second entry we add this person type by email. In this case, this was Brigida's email. Now, she's in the domain. We don't strictly need to add this, but because we've added her explicitly, our systems will generate that notification, and that's why you saw the notification pop up directly to Brigida. And then finally, we say that for this object, we want it to be restricted to true. This is required right now for the Domains API. Setting this to true is what tells our system that, yes, I want the domain restriction on this activity, this post I'm creating, so it can only be visible in my domain and not be reshared outside of it. Now that we've created the activity, it's as simple as calling the plus activities insert and executing it, which will make the call to the HTTP API and create the post. The response back from that was the activity, and in the example I did, I simply just wrote the URL back to the call, and that's why the button to congratulate Brigida then turned to a link directly to the post.
That's right. So once the activity is created, you don't simply lose it. You can actually find it again quite easily by requesting the URL from it.
And I would just like to reinforce that with the Domains API right now, all posts created are to be restricted to the domain. So as you experiment with this, maybe try integrating it with internal systems, your own CRM apps, you can feel safe that the activities being created will be locked down to your domain.
That's right. We do have a few safeguards with this API, which is why it is a domain-specific API for organizations. These boil down to two main things. One, you have to have a Google Apps domain. I mean, that's the whole point of the API. It's a domains API. So if you try to call the API and you don't have credentials belonging to a Google Apps domain on your account, it won't work. Second, you can only use it for your own domain. So we really mean it when we say that you can write posts. That's great. All your users, you can install apps, you can start flooding all your streams with useful, engaging content, but only your streams, your domain. So if you install an app within your organization, you install that app for that organization only. This has two immediate effects. First, as Thunder said, posts are restricted to the domain, which means that anyone in the domain can see them, or you can set the ACL so that maybe I only share privately with Thunder. But either way, it cannot be reshared outside the domain, as we went through with the nice little Venn diagram. Secondly, you can read posts from anyone in the domain. The great thing is you can read these posts whether they're restricted or not. So if I'm working in my capacity as my Inc42 salesperson, and I share a post out to all of you guys, the API can read that post because I'm the one who wrote it, and I'm in the domain.
And so this is just the start. Obviously, we've started with posts. We intend to expand this API. Some of you might already be thinking, what about circles? That's next on the radar. We'll be adding further calls that you can use to enhance the Google Plus experience for Google Apps users.
All right, let's recap. We've taken you through some of the headline features that we've released so far today. You can see here the domain labels, Hangouts integrations, restricted posts, and the defaults that the admin can set. We've also then
had a preview look at the new Google Plus Domains API. We took a look at the demo I hacked up myself to showcase how to integrate Google Plus with, say, a third-party CRM business tool.
So finally, we'd like to involve you guys. We'd love to hear back from you. We'd love to hear your feedback on what you want to do with this API. Where should we be focusing our efforts? What do you want us to work on? Do you want us to get more circles things going on here? Maybe more posts, read, write, fetch, all this stuff. We want to hear from you. You can fill out this form, which if you like, you can write down, but these slides will be available later, and that is a clickable link. You can also talk directly to your account managers, because if you have a Google Apps domain and you need to use this API, the account managers will be able to help you. And remember, you can also, if you're purchasing or licensing software from a vendor, you can ask them, hey, why don't you build an integration with the Google Plus Domains API? So if you're using a third-party CRM software and you want them to integrate the Google Plus stream for your domain, just send them a note and say, I heard about this Domains API at I/O.
All right, Joel, that's great. I think that's all we really have to announce and go over for today. But we're ready to take some questions about the session. And remember to rate this session as well, and then everybody should get ready for the after-hours party.
That's right. We did want to end a little bit early to let you guys go. It is the end of the day. Please step up to the mic so we can hear you and so the recording does catch your question as well.
Hi. In our organization, business use of Google Plus has been kind of slow, and maybe this is an outdated mindset, but I did see that you had a work account and a personal account. Our understanding was that it was a policy of Google Plus not to have multiple accounts. So we don't. A lot of people won't get a work account because they have a personal one. Is that a misunderstanding of the policy? Or is there any way we're going to merge, have a way for a single Google Plus account to have multiple email addresses attached to it? Technical ways of solving that problem?
Sure. It sounds like you're questioning the identity problem here, which is essentially that you're not the same person to everyone you're talking to. I'm standing here right now today in my capacity as a Google employee. That's not the same as me walking down the street tonight, where I'm just another person. And so my work account at Google, or in the example at 842, is designed to be an interaction with other coworkers, or when I'm talking to you guys right now, with external parties to my company, but still in my capacity as an employee. This is a very clear differentiator between my capacity as an individual. So we'd like to keep these lines separate, and this is inherent to our approach.
Okay.
Yeah. And regarding the policy side of the question, I'd refer you to talk to the press team for the official answer. But when you are paying and have these premier accounts or for your EDU, we don't have a problem with you obviously using it to Google+. We don't want you creating a bazillion accounts out in consumer space for your users. Having the domains account allows you this extra functionality. Regarding merging into one profile, we have nothing to announce as far as that goes right now. You can imagine there's many issues that complicate that, both policy-wise and whatnot.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, thanks for releasing the domain API.
You're very welcome.
So I work for Genentech, and we actually have 2 domains in production, one for gene.com and one is roche.com, and we are trying to pilot users from both domains. And this is great that we can actually share posts from custom web apps to our Google Plus circles. My question is, will you add support to actually trust domains or have a post be shared to multiple domains through the API?
That is a feature we've been asked about several times. Again, unfortunately, we have nothing to announce in that space at this time, but we have noted that feedback.
Okay, and quick follow-up. Can you actually manage circles using this API? Is there a way to actually sync LDAP or AD groups with circle creation?
So that's the exciting part I hinted at. Normally, we won't pre-announce things, but we have the circles functionality is coming very, very soon. Me personally, if I was, say, a manager, I would love to have the ability to say, I have a reportees circle that auto-updates, interns get hired, employees transfer. I don't have to worry about it. I have a reportees circle I can share to.
So thank you. That's fantastic.
I'm glad you're so excited. Thank you.
From this side.
Hi, I'm Marcio. I work for CI&T. We're a software developer, and we are super excited about those features. We are actually using, I noticed the guy said that they are not adopting Google Plus so much. We are adopting so much that we are using a lot less emails, right? So, but what strikes me is the fact that no one mentioned anything about the communities yet, and we love communities. We have communities with more than 1,000 members, and we are using actively every day, and we would love to see the Google API, for instance, the Google Plus API, allowing us to do more stuff with the community. For instance, we cannot make sure that every employee can only approve participation of the domain members, right? So it's very hard for us today to go in a 1,000 member community and see if there's anyone using the personal profile there. And that really puts us in a fragile situation because we might be sharing with someone that later can be fired and that person will keep that information, right? Just as a piece of feedback, so my question is, what are the plans around communities, right? And just as a piece of feedback, the hover thing for you to see the label is not efficient. Because if I have to approve like 15 people, I have to hover each one of them in order to approve them, right? So it would be better just to see a label there, you know?
Yeah. Thank you very much. So as we mentioned back then, we actually are looking at additional places we do want to introduce those labels. The hover card we found very useful simply because it is useful on a case-by-case basis when you want to know who is this person? I want to learn more about them. But as you say, it doesn't scale very well to long lists of people. So for example, search results are something we're taking a look at to see if maybe it will work out there.
And as far as what you mentioned, you're right, that is a very difficult process. And
for communities, it's a very new feature even in the consumer space, and we've been exploring with the communities team to see what we can do for enterprise. So thank you very much.
Feedback's well noted, and like we said, we're working to make Google Plus much better for your organizations.
Hey.
Thank you.
Next question.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Wing Lee with 4G operator in Malaysia. That's the video you saw. That's our project with Google. Anyways, we are super excited about this domain concept. Now, granted, whether it's in school or in businesses, people tend to share documents. So how would this notion of domain be recognizable by Drive so that when you actually want to share a document on Drive via your Google Plus Circle or Google Plus domain, that same domain concept will also apply to enforce the policies and the access control for objects on Drive?
So I think what you're asking is, if you were to share a document, you sort of want the audience of the document to stay in sync with the post that it's linked to.
And constricted to the domain, let's say.
Constricted to the domain.
So we do currently have domain restrictions in documents, and we have domain restrictions in posts. These are two separate systems in some sense, as far as that one is a social sharing model, and one of them is a collaborative working sharing model. However, this whole session has been about collaborative working social sharing. So essentially, our answer to that is, it's interesting to hear, it sounds like you're requesting that these two audiences be one and the same. And while that is an interesting feature request, which I'll pass on to some people, think about it from the perspective today. When you share a document, you only want to share it with a certain number of people, and you specify that in the document ACL. When you then potentially reshare that document in a post, and I say reshare here loosely, essentially you're sharing it on Google Plus for the first time, you also choose the audience, and you can choose to restrict that to your domain as well. Either way, though, any domain restrictions will be in effect. So if someone, say, Thunder tries to share a restricted document to me, I'm in the domain, that's fine. I try and reshare it on Google Plus to the world at large, they won't be able to access it because the document restriction is still there.
Okay, all right, that's a starting point. We'll continue the dialogue with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Jonathan Frankel, School of Rock. My question is kind of related to some of the others. I have a couple specific things, namely, like, I guess, feature requests. Will you be able to provision the Google Plus accounts? Because right now, from what I see is that you can allow people to create Google Plus accounts, but you can't create it for them. And also, it's kind of like it's a separate thing. The Google Plus profile is separate from your Google account on the domain that you have. And again, another question. In terms of control of data that the Google Plus profile has, so one example is we have people who create places pages, and we kind of don't have any control over that, which is kind of bad for our company stores.
When you say you don't have control, could you be a little bit more
The
specific?
user account owns the Places page, so as an admin, I can't like take it back when they leave the company.
Right. At the moment, plus pages are not domain plus pages. These are consumer space pages which are owned by domain members. We are looking into this. We're actively in discussion with the pages team to see what we can do about this.
And there's a way to contest if you feel you should own a page, it's your brand or identity, where you can file to reclaim ownership of that. As the other one, as far as auto provisioning, right now that's just a current policy because these are, even though they're owned by the domain, this is a publicly visible name and photo that is created by the employee. So as of today, our policy is to leave it an employee action to actually sign up and create the Google Plus account. Whether or not that could change in the future, we have nothing to announce at this time.
I guess that begs the question, would you allow for Google Plus to become a private social network for the domain?
That has never been our goal, as far as we want to be able to allow people to interact privately. In the same way as after this session, any of you can kind of come up and talk to us in a one-on-one conversation, and or we can walk into a room where all the walls are soundproof. That's fine. But we don't want to lock people in that room. We want to give them the opportunity, but we want to also say, if you want to share with people outside your domain, you want to interact with people outside your domain, you can. Just be aware that you're doing that. And that's what all our warnings and click-through explicit actions are for, specifically.
Yeah, it's not just content creation, it's also content consumption and how you interact with the world around you. So it's not our goal right now to actually limit the flows of information beyond where people want it to go. They can find alternative means. Otherwise, what we want them to do is to be able to make easy, smart choices and really share with the right people.
Yeah, just a quick little analogy on that. Look at how you use email. Your email client doesn't prevent you from sending an email to anyone outside of your organization. You use it responsibly. Today you guys have probably seen a bunch of internal Google email addresses. You can email those addresses because email is not an internal-only state, right? We try to follow the same sharing model in this case. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next question.
Lucenio Sorion in Chile, and we are one of the biggest resellers of Google Apps in the world.
Thank you.
We're very proud of that. And also we are a very good advocate of Google Plus. And at least the way I see Google Plus in a social site should be based also on a mobile app. Nevertheless, if you enable restricted posts by default on your Google Apps, you're going to lose the mobile app on your Android. And is that going to change soon, or what's the roadmap there? Soon?
Just yes.
Enough?
Yes. Not as soon as I want, but yes, very soon.
Thank you.
That was my question.
All right.
I have one last question. So Vic actually demoed the tags, that you will actually be populating tags for posts automatically based on some of either the image or the data within the post. For enterprise, so there is the Google Tag Manager that you can use with analytics. Is there any plan to actually have, so enterprises can define some tags that can be used within a domain that can be managed with the Google Tag Manager that integrates with posts? So you can actually do searches and analytics based off of tags and allow users to, populate or pick tags that are already published or being used frequently. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think it sounds more like a feature request. I don't have anything
Okay.
I'm not as familiar with that topic area, but we don't have anything to announce as far at this time.
That's right. But please, thank you for your feedback.
And please do actually send that feedback in, because I might mince some of the words if I try and recreate it.
Hi, Paul McManus from Fairfax Media. You actually quoted my CIO in your presentation, Andrew Lampertine. And the funny thing is, so we use Google Apps for pretty much everything now, except we still use Yammer as opposed to Google Plus. Google Plus. So I was just wondering if you think there's any features that you think your competitors might have that you really want to get into the apps, I guess, as a product manager, that maybe will convince more people to switch over.
I'm sorry, could you summarize the question?
Do you think there's any features missing in Plus at the moment that your competitors such as Yammer or other internal networks might already have?
As a product manager, my perspective on this is that I don't try to make my decisions based on what my competitors are doing. I try and take user feedback about what people want, what we can try and do for them that's the right thing to do. For example, I believe Thunder doesn't even have a Facebook page because he doesn't want to be unduly influenced by the state of the world today. It's sometimes, if you're familiar with the term zero gravity thinking, it's essentially trying to keep yourself only partially in context so that when you do need context, you can go get it. But when you try and brainstorm ideas, you're not held back by the way everyone else has been thinking about it.
And we understand that our competitors do make very compelling products. They offer different feature sets, and like Joel's saying, it's not a race. Sometimes they'll work better for you, and we're just trying to build the best product we can. And trust me, we're not running out of any features that we want to work on, but we want to hear more feedback about where you would like to see Google Plus go.
Right. So as an actionable thing from what you said, essentially, if there are features that you find useful in a competitor's product, feel free to put in a feature request. Let us know you want to see something like this. It's the users that we listen to.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Stuart Gable from Ancoris, enterprise Google Apps reseller. We've had feedback from enterprise users of Google Plus that when users leave, they're missing the threaded comments from within the activity stream. And I just wondered whether there was any thought about a way of preserving that.
So I can tell you that the state of it today technically is when you go and remove that account, you essentially delete that account, and then all the data gets deleted, which is why the threaded comments are gone. But as an admin, that is data you own. I think it's a feature request at this point. Right now, it would mimic essentially the same behavior. If I had a Gmail account and then I deleted that account, my comments from Google Plus World would be gone.
So we are looking at it, though.
Yeah, just from our perspective, the minimal kind of request would be for an ability to export with the threading preserved.
Well, in that case, this API might be very useful to you because you can read their posts.
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
Read and archive activities and comments.
That's right. If you don't want to do it yourself, any developer out there, feel free to make an API to try and help with this. Be aware that our current terms do not deal with keeping data that you read. So this is something we're looking into as well. We do hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to follow up to that, so
I don't have a special prize for asking the most questions.
No. I just have too many questions. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, that's fine.
Some of the policies for purging data for deleted accounts. I mean, you do hold on to sites, Google sites that are created by users. You're not purging some data. I know mail and calendar data gets purged after the user leaves and the account is deleted. Why not hold the Google Plus information and let the enterprise choose whether they want to or not to, kind of delete that data? Because it is, after all, the property of the enterprise. It's the individual is not taking it with them. The account is suspended, it's gone.
So
I'm just trying to
without
understand
rehashing more and more of the technical stuff. You're talking about an identity of a person who created that content versus something like a site other people manage or docs, which we actually allow you to transfer the ownership. When an employee leaves, you can transfer them to their manager or some other coworkers in ownership. The idea of transferring their personal comments and posts, right now, our systems say that goes with the user. You get rid of the user account, that goes away. But like we said,
we're looking.
Feel free to add on to it as a feature request.
And to be clear here, the comments we do hear back from you right now do matter to us a lot, because as much as we can get data as far as, okay, this many different people are requesting these features, this is something a lot of people are getting in, we deduplicate these things down to a single request with X number of people. It's this personal feedback we get from you in these big ticket events like I/O that really do help push the needle. Because after all, we're not just in it for ourselves. We're not just a little subunit of Google. We're working with Google+, with Enterprise, and with Docs and Drive and many different teams to try and make this stuff happen for you. So the better armed we are to argue our point that you are our users, you are everyone's users, and we want to do the right thing for you, the better we all work together.
So thank you, everyone, for staying through the session. We appreciate your questions. And Enjoy the rest of your I.O.